Have you ever wondered how much the most luxurious European cars of the 1940s cost? How exclusive they really were? And how much you'd be willing to pay for one today? Get ready? Because what you're about to see aren't just classic cars. They're true works of art on wheels, born in a Europe struggling to rebuild after the war. In this video, we'll uncover the 10 most expensive European cars of the 1940s, models that didn't just shine because of their price tags, but for their stories, their unrepeatable designs, and the way they were built. Tailor-made, handcrafted, like pieces of haute couture stitched over steel frames. And yes, that's something you need to understand from the start. Unlike the mass-produced American cars of the time, many of the vehicles on this list didn't come with a standard body. Manufacturers provided the chassis, the engine, and the mechanical base. But the bodywork was crafted by master coach builders like Saoutchik, Figoni at Falaschi, Hooper, Mulliner, Touring Superleggera, and others. Each car was unique. Every curve, from the shape of the headlights to the wood grain on the dashboard, was decided hand in hand with the client. That means prices varied dramatically depending on the level of customization. And today, no two examples are truly alike. Stay with me until the end, because each model on this list has something special to tell. And what they're worth today will absolutely surprise you. 1946. Jaguar Mark IV. There was something about British design in the 1940s that didn't need to shout to command respect. The Mark IV embodied that perfectly. Quiet elegance, restrained confidence, and flawless execution that felt more like an extension of personal style than a simple automobile. It was one of the first models Jaguar produced after World War II, the company's triumphant return to civilian life after years of building war machinery. Back then, a Mark IV cost around $2,600, which, adjusted for inflation, would be roughly $40,000 today. But if you want one now, beautifully preserved or faithfully restored, expect to spend anywhere from $40,000 to $70,000 on the collector's market. And trust me, every penny turns into admiration the moment you see one glide down the street. Under the hood, it carried a 3.5-liter inline-six, producing about 125 horsepower. That might sound modest today, but in 1946 it was more than enough to move this nearly 2-ton masterpiece with the kind of smoothness only British engineering could deliver. Where the Mark IV truly stood out, though, was in its presence. The tall chrome grille, the round headlights perched proudly over the fenders, the graceful roofline that swept into the rear. Every element evoked a time when design didn't follow trends. It set them. Step inside, and the smell of real leather, the walnut wood trim, and the analog gauges transported you straight into a rolling gentleman's lounge. Here's a fascinating detail. At the time, Jaguar wasn't even officially called that. The company's original name was SS Cars Limited, but after the war, for obvious reasons, they abandoned those initials and adopted Jaguar as their new identity, a symbol of strength, elegance, and rebirth. The Mark IV was the very first model to proudly carry that name on its grille. 1947, Mercedes-Benz 170S Cabriolet. In 1947, Germany was a nation in ruins, factories destroyed, cities scarred, and the future cloaked in uncertainty. Yet even in that desolate landscape, Mercedes-Benz achieved something extraordinary. It unveiled a car that didn't just function, but radiated elegance, confidence, and the promise of rebirth. That car was the 170S Cabriolet A, a refined masterpiece that came to symbolize the resilience of a brand and of an entire country. With an original price of around $3,400, roughly $45,000 adjusted for inflation, the 170S Cabriolet A was far from cheap. But today, its historical and collectible value has soared. A well-restored example with original parts can fetch $60,000 to $100,000 at specialized auctions, depending on authenticity and condition. This was the most exclusive version of the 170 lineup. Its convertible design, with soft lines and balanced proportions, gave it an air of effortless grace amid a world still recovering from austerity. Under the hood, a 1.7-liter inline-4 produced about 52 horsepower, modest on paper, yet enough to deliver a quiet, fluid driving experience that felt more like gliding than driving. But beyond the numbers, the true magic of the 170S Cabriolet A was in its craftsmanship. Every unit was assembled with almost obsessive precision. The interior was trimmed in fine leather, real wood panels, and delicately engineered gauges. With the top up, it became a discreet, elegant coupe. With the top down, it offered the feeling of freedom in a Europe desperate to forget the smoke of war. Here's something few people know. This model was among the first Mercedes-Benz cars exported to the United States after the war. Its presence on American soil marked not just the brand's return to the global market, but the rebirth of an image, one defined by sophistication, quality, and the idea that German luxury could rise from the ashes with more grace than ever before. 1948. Bristol 400. In the world of classic cars, some names are universally recognized, and others whisper their greatness only to those who truly understand. Bristol belongs to that second group, a brand that didn't need fame to have history, or ostentation to have class. And once you learn its origins, you'll understand why it remains one of the best-kept secrets in British motoring. Originally priced at about $4,000, roughly $55,000 in today's money, the Bristol 400 has become a true treasure among collectors. Because of its technical refinement, limited production, and near-legendary craftsmanship, pristine examples now sell for $60,000 to $90,000, particularly if they retain their original mechanical components. The most fascinating part of its story doesn't begin in England, but in Germany. After World War II, Bristol, originally an aircraft manufacturer, acquired the design rights to the BMW 328, one of the most advanced sports cars of its time. From that fusion of German precision and British craftsmanship, the Bristol 400 was born, a car unlike anything else before or since. Its 2.0-liter straight-six engine with overhead valves produced around 80 horsepower. But numbers only tell part of the story. What truly defined the 400 was its engineering balance, silky smooth operation, superb weight distribution, and an almost aircraft-like efficiency on the open road. The chassis, based on BMW's 326, gave it a solid foundation, but the hand-sculpted body was pure Bristol elegance. Inside, it was understated yet purposeful. Leather, polished wood, and aviation-inspired instruments reflected Bristol's aeronautical heritage. Every detail was built to last decades, not just to impress. And many of these cars still run flawlessly today. One little-known fact: Bristol never aimed for mass production. Each car was hand-built with such rigorous quality control that some said they were too precise for the general market. But for those who knew, engineers, pilots, connoisseurs, that precision was exactly what made the Bristol 400 so special. And now, let's pause for a moment. Of these more affordable classics we've seen so far, which one would you take home? Because I should warn you, from here on, the prices are about to skyrocket. What's coming next isn't just luxury, it's automotive art reserved for the truly privileged. Let me know your pick in the comments. 1947, Talbot Lago T26. If you had to name one car that personified luxury, performance, and French automotive artistry at its absolute peak, the Talbot Lago T26 would unquestionably be among the first. This wasn't a car simply built. It was crafted, sculpted like a piece of fine jewelry for the elite. Its original price hovered around $5,500, roughly $75,000 in today's money. But its real value lies in its rarity, beauty, and historical importance. Depending on the body style and originality, a T26 today can fetch between $350,000 and over $600,000 at top-tier auctions. And if it carries the signature of coach builders like Figoni at Falaschi or Saoutchik, the price easily soars into seven figures. Because at that point, you're no longer buying a car, you're buying art. At its heart was a 4.5-liter inline-six engine capable of producing between 170 and 195 horsepower, depending on configuration. An astonishing figure for the late 1940s. The same power plant, in fact, was used in the racing variants of the T26 that competed at Le Mans, proving it was as fierce on the track as it was refined in the salon. What made the Talbot Lago T26 so extraordinary was its stylistic versatility. Talbot supplied the chassis, but the bodywork was entrusted to France's finest artisans. As a result, no two T26 were alike. Each one was a unique expression of design, with sweeping curves, hand-polished chrome, rich interiors, and proportions that bordered on the divine. A little-known fact: the T26 was one of the last great luxury cars built by an independent French manufacturer before the industry was absorbed by larger corporate groups. It represents the end of an era, a time when cars weren't mass-produced machines, but rolling works of art. 1949 Alfa Romeo 6 C 2500 Super Sport. If there has ever been a car capable of making people fall in love at first sight, it's this one, especially the touring-bodied versions like the legendary Villa d'Este. This wasn't merely a vehicle, it was Italian romance on wheels, a fusion of passion, artistry, and engineering perfection that could only have been born in post-war Italy. Its original price was around $6,500, equivalent to about $90,000 today. But finding one now is like hunting for a lost masterpiece. These cars routinely sell for $200,000 to $600,000, and the most pristine examples have approached $1 million at international auctions. Not an exaggeration, but a testament to its timeless allure. Under the hood, the 6C 2500 Super Sport featured a 2.5-liter inline-six, producing around 110 horsepower, paired with silky smooth handling that made driving it feel like conducting an orchestra. The throttle response, the crisp gear shifts, the restrained growl of the engine. Every movement was designed to seduce. It wasn't just fast, it was graceful. A sports car wearing a tuxedo. The body, crafted by Carrozzeria Touring, employed the revolutionary superleggera technique. A lightweight tubular frame covered in hand-formed aluminum panels, achieving both rigidity and elegance. But what truly mesmerized was its design, the gentle flow of the fenders, the perfectly placed chrome accents, and that iconic grille that seemed to smile with quiet confidence. The famous Villa d'Este model earned its name after winning the Concorso d'Eleganza at Lake Como in 1949. An event that immortalized it as one of the most beautiful cars ever created. A remarkable detail. This was the last great hand-built Alfa Romeo before the brand transitioned to mass production. Each one was individually assembled, with buyers personally choosing colors, interior trims, and finishes. No two were identical. Each was a tailor-made masterpiece, the final expression of Alfa's artisanal soul before the modern age began. 1948 to 1951. Delahaye 175S. In the world of classic automobiles, some cars were made to be driven, and others were created to be admired. The Delahaye 175S belongs firmly to the second category. Its very presence, whether on a street, at a concours, or inside a museum, can stop time. More than a car, it was an aesthetic statement, a moving sculpture with an engine and a license plate. Originally priced around $7,800, roughly $110,000 in today's money, the 175S was already a symbol of exclusivity. But that barely scratches the surface. A well-preserved example can sell today for anywhere between $115,000 and over $1 million, and those wearing bodywork by Saoutchik, Chaperon, or Figoni et Falaschi have reached stratospheric prices, some even exceeding $5 million. True museum-grade masterpieces. Built on a sturdy yet elegant chassis, each 175S was hand-bodied by France's most renowned coach builders. No two were alike. Some featured voluptuous curves and flamboyant chrome flourishes, while others embraced understated elegance, but all shared a presence that radiated sophistication. This was bespoke automotive art for millionaires, film stars, and aristocrats. Under the hood lay a 4.5-liter inline-six, producing between 160 and 180 horsepower, enough to make it not only breathtakingly beautiful, but impressively fast for its time. Some variants even competed in prestigious events like the Monte Carlo Rally and the Paris Motor Show, proving that Delahaye's creations were as capable as they were captivating. Yet what continues to mesmerize is the presence of the 175S. Seeing one in person feels like watching a piece of haute couture glide effortlessly among ordinary cars. Every line, every proportion seems designed to provoke admiration, and it succeeds effortlessly. A fascinating detail, the 175S marked one of the final breaths of handcrafted French luxury before the rise of industrial production. It was the end of an era when cars were designed with pencils, passion, and metal, not software. 1949 to 1953, Aston Martin DB2. When you hear the name Aston Martin, your mind immediately conjures images of refined sports cars, graceful lines, understated elegance, and a spirit that whispers performance rather than shouting it. The DB2 is where that essence was born. It wasn't just a car, it was the beginning of the Aston Martin legend. With an original price around $8,500, roughly $120,000 today, the DB2 was far from accessible. Yet, for collectors now, it's a treasure worth between $350,000 and over $600,000, particularly the early hand-built models produced in very limited numbers. The DB2 was the first Aston Martin developed under David Brown, the man whose initials still define the brand's most iconic cars. It marked a turning point, a move from experimental engineering toward a more refined philosophy, grand touring performance without compromising luxury. Under the hood, a 2.6-liter inline-six engine, originally from Lagonda, produced up to 105 horsepower, but raw numbers aren't what made the DB2 special. It was the delivery of that power, smooth, balanced, and responsive, making the driver feel like part of the machine. Agile, precise, yet comfortable enough for long journeys. It embodied the very definition of the British Grand Tourer. The design hinted at the future, a distinct open-mouth grille, muscular fenders, and a sleek flowing silhouette that blended performance with class. It wasn't loud or ostentatious. It radiated confidence quietly. One glance was enough to know you were looking at something extraordinary. Here's something remarkable. The DB2 debuted at the 24 Hours of Le Mans before it was even available to the public. It was born on the racetrack, then refined for the road, a formula that would define Aston Martin for decades to come. This was the car that didn't just build a reputation, it built a legacy. 1948 Bentley Mark VI. To talk about this car, especially the coach-built versions by Mulliner or Park Ward, is to step into a world where the automobile was far more than transportation. It was an extension of personal taste, status, and the enduring sophistication of British aristocracy. The Bentley Mark VI marked the brand's triumphant return after the war, combining impeccable engineering with a restrained yet undeniably majestic design. A standard Mark VI cost around $9,000 when new, but bespoke coach-built versions easily climbed past $11,000, the equivalent of a $130,000 to $160,000 today. In today's collector market, a Mulliner-bodied example in original or faithfully restored condition can exceed $250,000, while uniquely commissioned models have been known to fetch over $400,000. The Mark VI was Bentley's first post-war production car with a factory-built all-steel body, but the most exclusive clients still preferred the traditional coach-built chassis, which was sent to the great British coachmakers of the era. Houses like Mulliner, Park Ward, and H.J. Mulliner and Company produced rolling works of art, each one shaped to its owner's taste, from industrial magnates to members of royal families and Hollywood elites. Inside, every Mark VI was a sanctuary of genuine leather, polished wood, and clockwork precision. Nothing was left to chance. From the door handles to the soft ambient lighting, everything exuded calm, discreet luxury, the very essence of British refinement. A lesser-known fact, many Mark VI models with special coachwork were sold to high-profile American clients, particularly along the East Coast. For them, Bentley offered the same level of opulence as Rolls-Royce, but with a more understated, sporting attitude. It was the choice of those who knew. 1936 to 1944. Mercedes-Benz 540 K Special Cabriolet. When it comes to cars that transcended time, fashion, and even war itself, the Mercedes-Benz 540 K Special Cabriolet doesn't just belong in the conversation, it leads it. Though its development began in 1936, several units were completed and delivered in the early 1940s, during the fragile years between wartime chaos and Europe's slow recovery. Each of these cars stood as a declaration of technical mastery, aesthetic perfection, and silent power. Priced between $10,000 and $12,000 depending on specification. An astronomical figure for the time, equivalent to roughly $180,000 to $220,000 today. In the modern collector market, some examples have sold for over $7 million, and uniquely bodied versions by Sindelfingen or Erdmann and Rossi have surpassed $10 million, depending on condition and provenance. Beyond its breathtaking proportions, the long hood, flowing lines, and dramatic stance, the 540K was a mechanical marvel. Powered by a 5.4-liter supercharged inline-8, it produced around 180 horsepower thanks to a mechanically engaged compressor system. Cutting-edge technology available only to the world's automotive elite. Every 540K special cabriolet was hand-built, and not just on the outside. The interiors were nothing short of mobile suites, trimmed in exotic woods, hand-stitched leather, and precision instruments that reflected the pinnacle of German craftsmanship. To sit inside one was to experience an atmosphere of silence, control, and unshakable prestige. An extraordinary fact, the 540K was favored by high-ranking diplomats, industrial tycoons, and European royals, who saw in it not merely transportation, but a statement, unmatched elegance, uncompromising engineering, and near-absolute exclusivity. Its production numbers were extremely limited, and every surviving car today is treated as a rolling museum piece, sacred yet alive. And now that we've reached the end of this parade of elegance, craftsmanship, and history on wheels, tell me, did you enjoy seeing this European selection on the channel? We usually explore America's great classics, but there's something truly hypnotic about the way Europe designed its automotive jewels in the 1940s. Each car a different form of poetry and metal. Would you like to see more videos like this one? Let me know in the comments, because if this video gets enough love, we'll prepare new lists featuring Italian, French, British, and German icons that defined an era. And if you haven't yet watched our video on the most expensive American cars of the 1940s, don't wait any longer. Click now and join us on that unforgettable journey through post-war American luxury. See you there.